All right, so this section is going to cover the rules about solving for inequalities. Now, similar to just solving for equations, all the steps are the same. As far as when we get into multi-step inequalities, we're going to start with single step. But you add or subtract, isolate constants on both sides, and you multiply or divide at the end. The only difference between inequalities and equations is if your last step, or if at any time really, you multiply or divide by a negative number when you're manipulating the problem, you have to flip the inequality sign. So with the single step for addition and subtraction, we're never going to flip the sign. We're always going to keep it the same direction. But for the single step, multiplying or dividing, there's going to be times where we have to flip that sign. And we're going to go through examples now to undo these inequalities. All right, so we're going to solve and graph all of these. So just like any other single step problems, we have to get the variable by itself. So here we have an m and a negative 6. So we have to add 6 to both sides. When we do that, we get m. And this is important to line up your inequality symbol, especially as we're doing multiple step ones, so that it's facing the correct direction until we have to flip it. That's where I think we'll get confused sometimes, especially if the variable's on the other side. So negative 4 plus 6 would equal 2, and then we can go ahead and graph that. Draw our number line, label 0, label 2, open circle, and then as we read it, m is greater than 2, so it's going to point to the right. All right, over here, again, we're adding 7 to both sides. So I have n, and then bring down that symbol. Negative 2 plus 7 is going to be positive 5. So as I graph that, again, draw your number line, label 0, label 5. It's a closed circle now. And this reads n is less than negative 5, so less than or equal to, so we're going that way. All right, and again, over here, just single step, minus 3 on both sides. T, line it up. 8 minus 3 is 5. Label 0. Label your 5. T is greater than, it's a closed circle. Going that way. Here's a bonus sample problem. So if we have negative 10 less than or equal to x minus 4, how would we do that? All right, so we would say add 4 to both sides. So we're isolating that variable. So negative 6 less than or equal to x. Draw our number line. Label 0. Label negative 6. And then we have to read it. X is greater than or equal to negative 6. So cover that in. Greater than is going that way. All right, now when we multiply or divide, again, these would be a final step type example. Whenever we have a fraction, we can multiply by that denominator to get the numerator by itself. So over here, I'm going to multiply both sides by 0.5. So this would be y, and again, is less than or equal to negative 3 times 0.5. And again, you can use your Desmos calculator. So we know that this is going to cancel out to y. So we just put our negative 3 in. You use parentheses, negative 3, and multiplying that by 0.5. That gives us negative 1.5. So we can leave that as a decimal. All right, so as we graph this, we graph 0, graph negative 1.5, closed circle. How do we read this? Y is less than, so we go this way. All right, in this example, now I have a negative, so to make that a positive, I have to multiply by a negative. So I'm going to multiply this by negative 4. That's going to cancel that out, leave us with k. Multiply this side by negative 4. All right, so now here's where the rule comes in, where we have to flip the sign. Since I'm multiplying by a negative number, instead of going this way, I now have to flip that sign. Negative 1 times negative 4 is going to be positive 4. So just make sure you are getting those numbers correct. Negative 1 times negative 4, that equals That's not right. Sorry, times negative 4. Put that in parentheses. So negative 1 times negative 4, make sure you're doing that. And that would give us, where is that? There we go, positive 4. Sorry, this calculator was a little screwy. So 4 is our answer. We graph that. K is less than 4. Put 0. Put a 4. Open circle. Pointing to the less than. All right, over here, how do we undo this? We're going to divide by negative 2 on both sides. Again, if we're dividing or multiplying, up here we multiply by a negative. Here we divided by a negative. Or here we multiply by a positive, we didn't change the sign. Here we multiply by a negative, we did change the sign. Since we're dividing by a negative number here, to get t, we have to flip this sign, so now it's opening the other way. Negative 8 divided by negative 2 is going to be positive 4. Label 0, label 4, open circle, t is greater than 4, going this way. All right, then over here, again, to get this by itself, we divide by negative 3. So W, and then we divide it by a negative, so we flip the sign. So make sure you reverse that. That would be negative 4 as our answer. Draw a number line, 0, negative 4. Now that's going to be left of 0. Filled in. W is less than negative 4. Our arrows are going that way. All right, so that's the only change from an inequality to an equation is if you multiply or divide at the end by a negative number, you have to flip that sign.